Alrighty, y'all, I promise that this countdown isn't about to go anywhere. Sorry for the anxiety, but we just got done watching the new campfire chat, the new developer live stream covering 3 hours of a pretty insane. In fact, you know what? The timer going down is causing me anxiety. Let's go ahead and pause that. But covering 3 hours of just like an absolute boatload of information. We got a ton of cool stuff in here. Half the stuff that everybody said, hey, we don't agree with that, they changed or made better or expanded on. Like, the amount of changes just walking out of the PTR is absolutely insane. We learned a ton of stuff coming in season 6. I think I want to cover a lot of that in a different video because that's all brand new stuff we're all going to be experiencing together, right? So I can give you a bunch of speculation on it, and inevitably I will. But I think more so, that's not necessarily super important for people who needed to learn stuff from this campfire chat. So what I wanted to do was touch on all of the changes to the systems that are already in the game, as well as the things that we experienced in the PTR to catch you up to speed. And I want to try to do it in 10 minutes or less. I'm actually just going to even copy and paste the notes that I took that have a bunch of timestamps on it as well down in the comments. So if you want to go check out the live stream, I'll also link the live stream's actual VOD page as well. So you can go check it out and go link up like, oh, hey, Max said Runewords were talked about at this point. Let me go listen to what they were saying. I cared about that. That's all down there. Let's just go ahead and jump into my notepad. It's going to look like the scrawling madness of an absolute lunatic, but I haven't quite been sleeping a lot. There's a lot of work to do. Bada bing, bada boom, we got our notepad here. So I'm just going to very quickly go through bullet point by bullet point and just expand on things that aren't immediately obvious or things that I've seen were kind of confusing while me and chat were actually sitting here and watching this and might need a little bit more information. About 35 minutes into the stream, they actually start talking about the Twitch drops that they're going to have going on. Twitch drops are you watch some content on one of the approved streamers, and I think it's basically anybody streaming Diablo 4 at this point, and you will get in-game free unlockable skins and cosmetics. This is just straight up. If you watch some Diablo, if you just have a bunch of streams on in the background, you know, you just have them on low volume, or maybe you're actively engaging with it, watching for a certain number of hours will get you those cosmetics. This is going to run for the entire first month of the expansion releasing. In addition to that, and the reason why I want to make these two different points is because I saw confusion about this on Reddit. People are like, why do I have to give money to get Twitch drops? You absolutely don't. These are two completely separate things. But they're also going to do the support a streamer. Now, if people remember when the game initially launched, they also did a support a streamer project, where it's basically, if you gift subs to a streamer, you will get an in-game cosmetic. It's basically like, instead of paying the Blizzard shop or paying Microsoft the $20 for a horse with armor, you instead give it to a streamer that you personally like, or if you're just feeling really charitable, a whole bunch of them, and then you just give them gift subs. I think it's like 4 in total, and you unlock a super cool mount with a super cool armor. It's basically just a way of you getting something back for the type of support that you would normally be giving to your favorite content creators. And the thing that it is basically a horse mount you would have bought in the shop anyways. So rather than handing the money to Blizzard, you're handing it to a streamer. How do you feel about that? I don't need to explain that to you, but I just wanted to differentiate that because I saw a lot of confusion about it. Starting off 40 minutes into the stream, roughly, we started talking about learnings from the PTR. Basically in the PTR, a lot of monsters were just doing like radically way too much damage from lightning abilities and poison abilities, something that we've been dealing with a whole bunch. Turns out that certain levels of elite monsters just scaled significantly higher with these affixes, and those all have been normalized. So we shouldn't expect to get absolutely punted into the ground by a random like charge bolt or lightning enchanted or like shock lance or the little obelisks that come out and then shoot death lasers at you. Hopefully, hardcore players are going to be able to sleep a little bit easier at night. I still wouldn't trust it until we experience it, but technically speaking, they said they have normalized that damage. You're now going to be able to start on Penitent level. Now, I have been playing a reviewer build of the expansion and at least some of these changes. I'm going to have a whole video talking about the difficulties and how to progress through them, so I won't say too much more on this, but it's very cool that if you have like a super twink character or you're just starting off and you feel really, really confident, you can just start on Penitent. I think you're going to die based off the footage that we saw, but like, go ahead, give it a shot. Take your first hardcore character and see if you can make it. They also changed a bunch of things to the initial progression of gear. Basically, you could only masterwork up to 4 ranks and you can only temper gear once before you got to ancestral gear. Now you can masterwork all the way up to 8, so you can get 2 masterwork crits, and much more importantly, you can actually temper gear twice. So that means that on your jewelry, you can both add ways of managing your resources and add on damage or add on class specific attack speed or something like that. On your weapon, you can get your core skill deals double damage and an additive damage source. And even more importantly, on your armor, you can both add a survivability stat like armor, maximum life or resistances, and a utility stat like increase the duration or increase the area of effect of your crowd controls. This is a significantly huge power scale that was not available to us in the PTR, and I think it's going to drastically change how players engage with their gear in the early game. Unique items are going to drop as Ancestral more often, something that wasn't really happening altogether that much in Torment difficulty. You're going to get 2 Tempering Reset Scrolls right off the jump from completing the season's journey. They also drop in the world, but it's nice that you'll get at least some just for doing it. They made it so that your main stat is significantly weaker than it was before. They basically doubled the bonus of your main stat for your damage, and they've now cut that back to the original value. So you're not going to see people probably scaling up to like 3,000 plus main stat, because it just won't be worth it. In addition to that, and while there's like wide-ranging Paragon changes, the biggest thing to take away is that the legendary glyphs that we had have their scaling cut in half and their bonuses cut in half. They were just like way too strong. We were actually stronger than we were after the stat squish, which is the wildest thing to say, most notably because of the Paragon system. All right, let's go ahead and speed up a little bit. Around 52 minutes, they start talking about PTR systems learning. Most notably, the Paragon system got like the biggest hit here. So basically, they made Paragon more valuable around glyph sockets, so there's not like a bunch of like wasted nodes because there literally weren't enough around them. All the rare nodes are just worth more, so rather than getting like potion healing, you might get maximum life or healing received in general. A bunch more defensive stats in there as well. All of the rare nodes around glyphs should be stronger as well. So basically, the nodes that aren't your legendary bonus, your legendary glyph, or the actual like legendary node of that board will all be significantly stronger than they were previously. Doesn't really change anything, but it's nice that the power is more diffuse throughout the system. The Infernal Hordes have also been tuned, and I think in a very good way here. So as far as I can tell, there are only 3 chests now. There's the big 200 Ancestral Item Guaranteed chest, a Materials chest, and a Gold chest. The Council themselves are going to drop unique items always, as well as a boss loot, so like a normal dungeon boss loot worth of gear. And those unique items are going to be the Infernal Horde unique items. And then in addition to that, walking up to the material chest, this will just spend all of your Aether. So rather than having to click it like 50 times, no joke, you'll click it one time, get a bunch of resources, everybody goes home happy. They've increased the ancestral drop rate across the board. It was just very low in the PTR. They've made it so that more things give more experience and it's just stronger in general. Loot across the world will also be better. Goblins are better. The butchers better. Infernal hordes, going into like the Blood Maiden, etc. All of these things are better. Strongholds got very slightly nerfed. They're still very powerful, but they're no longer giving like 2+ levels. They're only going to be giving like a level and a quarter, depending on what level you are. So still very good, but not infinitely abusable. You can only get them one time and less than we saw before. In Torment level, it's going to auto salvage everything that is not a legendary piece of gear. So you're no longer going to see magic, normal, and rare pieces of gear. I still assume they'll drop from random stuff like barrels on the side of the road, because those always seem to get missed, but hopefully they don't. And then there's a massive change to how you're going to craft mythic items. Before it was 4 resplendent sparks to craft the mythic item that you want. Now it's you can take 2 resplendent sparks and take a random chance. It'll give you a random mythic out of all the ones that are possible. You can do this at the blacksmith. But at the jeweler, you can actually take 2 resplendent sparks and a combination of runes, be able to craft a specific mythic. So this is inherently different in that you can actually luck into getting the mythic that you need significantly earlier. So rather than needing 4, you only need 2. And if you want to, you can also do it deterministically. One of the benefits here is that it's going to give runes an inherent value, like an inherent trade value, because you can effectively directly translate runes to the mythic unique that they craft and how valuable that thing is. So it's going to set some kind of standard for the economy. Another really cool thing is you're going to be able to take a bunch of salvage and basically gamble at the blacksmith for anywhere between like rare items all the way up to mythic items. So they're going to have different sink costs, meaning like different amounts of materials and gold that go into it. But for people who like don't need it anymore for re-rolling or aren't crafting or aren't tempering anymore, they're just looking for gear, you could just dump it all into the blacksmith for chances at pretty cool stuff. Hard to say what that's really going to look like, but I'm glad that there are more types of gambling in the game other than just obols. Starting at 1 hour and 5 minutes in, they went over a plethora of the class changes. Now, I highly recommend checking out the actual patch notes, because the patch notes are insane. I'm going to be covering all the Necromancer changes in a separate video, because I just want to cut these 2 things off. I don't really make enough general content. I only make Necro content. content, and I'm trying to swap that up. But basically go there if you just want to get a broad strokes idea of what happened with the classes, but I promise you want to check out the actual patch notes themselves. I'll include that in the description as well. The big takeaway, if you're not going to watch any of my other videos or go look at them yourselves, minion stonks went through the roof. It's insane. Welcome to Season 2 Minions Return. It's actually going to be that wild. Like the numbers that they were saying and how things scale with minions now, including Ring of Mendel now scaling with your minions, Shade Mist now scaling with your minions, Fell Gluttony now scaling with your Golem. There's big stuff going on. Check out my other video. Starting at 1 hour and 17 minutes in, they talked about Runewords. Basically, they took the worst runes and they threw them in the garbage, get rid of them. They then took the strongest runes, most notably Call to Arms as well as Petrify, whatever that one was called, and they nerfed them. They took away Berserking from the Call to Arms rune word, the one that used Ohm rune, so it just gives you the initial damage boost and for a shorter duration. And for the Petrify skill from Druid, it actually just changed how that skill worked. So you now just get the base version. It's going to stun enemies and also grant you 100 resource, which is actually kind of cool. And that also, I think, just buffed the Druid as well. And then they moved the damage multiplier, like the crit damage multiplier, to one of the enhancements for the skill in the Druid's actual tree. So non-Druids will never gain access to it. They also basically just took every single magic and rare rune and just made them strictly better, sometimes like doubling how much offering they gave, reducing cooldowns. They did tweak or nerf some of the other strong ones as well, like increasing some costs, reducing how much cooldown reduction you could get, which I think was probably warranted. If everybody wasn't using the Call to Arms and the Petrify runes, they were most certainly going to be using the plus all skills and cooldown reduction. Those ones were just generally a little bit too strong. Oh, and they updated the art, and by updated, I mean returned them to the original art. If you didn't know this, if you're not like a massive like Diablo 2 head, a lot of these runes already existed in the world. That's where Runewords came from, right? Diablo 2. But they changed the art for ones that they already had merch for, like Ja Rune, part of Enigma. I have an Enigma shirt. They just changed what Ja Rune looked like. Well, they reverted that back. Thank you very much. I'm one of the people who called out like the weirdly anachronistic retconning of this, because it really wouldn't make sense inside of the lore, and I'm glad that they listened. Is that stuff super important? Not in the grand scheme of things, right? It's not going to go stop a war, but it is important to people who care about the lore because it exists and there's no real reason to just abuse it like that. And then for the people who wanted to go look at these things, again, they start talking about Season 6 and just a massive amount of all the stuff coming. So the new seasonal content with Realm Walker is very cool. I recommend watching the video. Dark Citadel, the Undercity, and explaining how all these different systems work. That starts at 1 hour and 33 minutes. Again, I'm just going to make a separate video on this. I don't want to bog you down if you're not interested in having that stuff spoiled for you. Not that I'm calling out anybody for doing that. Obviously, like, you consent to click on the video. But for people who didn't want to see it, I'm not going to include it here. And then at the very end, and you're actually just going to see this in the patch notes if you go look at it, but they very cheekily hinted at the fact that there was going to be higher than tier 100 pit. And it turns out they just added 50 more levels to the pit, and they basically don't expect anybody to get there. But obviously, one of the various Chinese players around there is going to find infinite damage, and we're going to get right back to doing the top end pit. But it'll be interesting to see where builds scale out against it that aren't that broken. But all right, there you go. I tried to do it as quickly as I could. I'm a little bit long-winded. I'm sorry. I touched on all the things that I thought were important. Again, check these notes. I have them down in the comments. Check the link to the patch notes themselves. Check the link to the VOD as well if you want to go check out these timestamps. Let me know down in the comments if you appreciated this. Just kind of like high level, very quick, quick and dirty. Here's what you need to know. Here are all the important things. Let me know if that was good for you. If it wasn't, let me know what I could have done better in the future. If you're brand new here, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video as well. It helps me out a ton. It's free, costs you nothing. Please do it. It would help. It would help a lot. I'm trying to buy a house, y'all. Look, I'm chilling for myself. All right, let's get done with that. Thank you again. Thank you very much for watching this video. I truly, truly hope that helps and look forward to seeing you in the next one.